Hello everyone, my name is Pauline and this is kind of Christmas edition. I think it's perfect to make it about Rumplestiltskin. We all do love him pretty much, right? I've put a lot of effort into this video, so enjoy! And a small note, most of the psychology knowledge I'm using here I've brought from different articles on the internet. So if you're interested, I've left the links right below. Now let's get started. But no, the Enchanted Forest as well as Storybrooke is a land of abandoned children, and Rumplestiltskin isn't an exception. His mother didn't want him to live his own fate and used the damn shares in him because the ward got banished far away from his son. And Rumple's father turned out to be even worse than the mother. He really wasn't interested in raising his son and his own, and he didn't have that unconditional love of a parent to his child. On the contrary, he was the second child and preferred sweet life in Neverland instead of being mature and handle adult responsibilities. It's typical for abandoned children to grow fear and shame. Fear because they're kinda alone and there's no one to protect them, so they're helpless. And shame because they know they're unwanted. They think they're not important and they're not worth normal life, but of course every child deserves the best. That shame was still with Rumple when he was already a couple of hundreds years old, and it interfered his relationship with Belle, for instance. Rumple was still sure he couldn't be important to someone, he couldn't be loved. And because of that, he rejected Belle the very first time. The fact that someone could fall for him, that someone could care about him, confused Rumple. It just didn't suit his perceptions of himself and the others. Even after reuniting with Belle and Storybrooke, he couldn't fully believe she was more than serious with her intention and that she'd firmly decided to stay with him. So he continued to cling to his power, his dagger, and his magic. Because Fiona and Peter Pan weren't able to love Rumplestiltskin without a trouble, he got the idea that he was not of value at all. He thought he would be always denied by people. He was convinced there was something wrong with him, something everyone avoided. So Rumple found himself all alone in a huge empty castle with a reputation of the worst, the most terrible man, not even a man but a crocodile. Now let's explore the origins and the consequences of Rumple's cowardice. Cowardice comes from incredible fear. In case with Rumple, we know fear had been with him from kinda babyhood, growing up without a mother, then dealing with a shitty father, then without any father. Yeah, everything we've been just talking. Rejected plus not protected equals to fear, and fear results in cowardice. And not only inner shame, but that cowardice as well was interfering Rumple from making it alright with Belle, because we need courage to let others in, and Rumple didn't have that courage. We can presume that in addition to thinking he couldn't be loved, he was also extremely afraid of rejection and disapproval, because he was an awful coward. So he wasn't only thinking but was also afraid. Cowardice had been destroying Rumple's life for centuries. It was the thing that provoked him to become the Dark One, that separated him from his first son, that made him cruelly kill Mila twice and do an uncountable number of another terrible, terrible things. Even Rumple's beloved power couldn't hide his cowardly nature. Power. People want power to ensure their own safety, and Rumplestiltskin definitely had his reasons for wanting that, because he had never been really safe until turning dark, thanks to his parents. Actually, if you have seen season 6, you know that initially Rumplestiltskin was destined to be the savior, to be greater than good, to be as good as gold. Get it? Yeah, Mr. Gold. So symbolic. A person who makes things happen for a price. In the Enchanted Forest, he's an omnipotent sorcerer who makes awful deals with everyone who comes to him. And in Storybrooke, he is a pawnbroker. Roughly the same things. So pawnbroker, I've recently learned that it's a person who makes deals. No, who lends money in exchange for someone's valuable possession, and if the person who borrowed the money doesn't pay it back by an agreed time, a pawnbroker can sell the possession. But Rumple wasn't to stay terrible for the rest of the show. He finally became good. And in the fourth episode of season 7, we could see something like Rumple's full redemption. And it may seem groundless at first, because it seemed to me groundless when I first saw it. But to blame the writers is too easy, and it's really better to study the plot carefully and figure out how it can make sense. At the end of season 6, Rumple had to go through a lot of tough stuff. He should deal with a suddenly grown-up son, face and destroy his own mother to save everyone else, and learn the most astonishing truth of his past. All those things were very hard to withstand. And on trying to provide the best life for his family, Rumple had to refuse from doing it in wicked ways. He understood that clearly and did what was needed to be done. Love happened to be able to give him some sense and courage. After the final battle was won, Rumple kept no more reasons to proceed with our role of secretive and approachable man. He got his infant son his second chance. He finally realized Belle was too loving and loyal to give up on him, and he had no more unsolved things concerning his dear parents. Besides, he got the proof he was capable of being alright without darkness. He got the proof that he had had goodness in him since his very birth, and he tasted choosing the right thing and being brave even under temptation. He managed to dispose of a coward inside him, and he knew he'd been trying to live happily being cowardly and dark for too long, and there was no point in going on with that. And his happy beginning was just in front of him. Yeah, sometimes people learn, and Rumple, he'd been always a clever man. He could realize the simple truth after so long. He did, and we should be happy for him. Really, if the circumstances, the surroundings of a person or a character are considerably altered, he or she can change their minds and souls greatly just in a moment. In TV shows, that's in an episode, and so yeah, Rumple's redemption is quite logical actually. And the final battle, it was won precisely by Rumple, and it had to be his battle. In one of my previous videos, I said that I believed once upon a time's main focus was on Rumple's fight between good and evil, and I still believe so. I really think that Rumple is the most important character. He's everywhere, everyone is connected somehow to him. He's the key figure. So it was mostly about Rumple, and then we saw him fighting the final battle, and his victory. It let us learn that redemption is possible for literally everyone at all, and the show is to tell us that. So it was a complex overview of Rumplestiltskin's psychology, and now I want to look into his romantic relationships. He had a lot of romances, and it seems fascinating to investigate. So he grew certain relationships with Mila, Cora, Regina the Evil Queen, Belle, and Angelina. Yeah, so many. Does it seem to me, or only am I not on the list, or maybe we don't know something that happens in season 8, I guess? Okay, what's wondering me is how they all could fall for him, what they found in him, why him? Actually, I think it was due to appropriate circumstances, and now let's look at each case one by one in order. Mila. There wasn't any throwback showing how Rumple met her, and there wasn't really an appearance of their love. But I suppose that their marriage was in some extent needed for survival, and we know from history that it was exactly like that in the past, because poor peasants from small villages didn't have any choice. Then comes Cora, and it's way more interesting. I think they really loved each other, and they did because they were much alike. They were both obsessed with power, they were both alienated by society, and they were both quite selfish. And actually, I think because of that selfishness, they couldn't spare their love. Okay, after the mother comes the daughter, And Regina once said there had been always some kind of chemistry between Rumpelstiltskin and the Evil Queen. That was surprising to hear, but it can be explained. A student and teacher actually can have attraction, especially if they are of different genders and work face to face a lot. Regina thought Rumpelstiltskin was helping her, caring about her, and that time he was the only man in her life except for her father, so that chemistry between them was possible and rather obvious. And Belle, I adore her, but her love for Rumple can seem quite selfish at first. So we can think that unlike Cora, her love wasn't an unconditional feeling for a particular person, but rather a rational goal to achieve some ideal. Belle wanted to change Rumple, so how could she love him? Even though Belle extremely liked to say that she had seen the man behind the beast, we can't blame her and we can't say her and Rumple's love was fake. Thanks to the writers, they made Rumple point out to Belle that she had fallen for the man and the beast, and that was the absolute truth. Belle loved Rumpelstiltskin unconditionally. She was just maybe too stubborn to admit it. And if she hadn't loved him like that, she wouldn't have come back to him again and again and again and again as she did. So how did they grow their feelings? Rumpelstiltskin was also the only man in Belle's life, and he was so mysterious and he seemed a very good object to work on. And what about Rumple? Belle was the only woman around him, and she was so brave and clever and responsible and kind and yeah, beautiful. Now about Zelina. She hadn't been treated well by most of people and she'd had almost no friends. And Rumple was the first to admit her amazing capabilities. And he had magic just like her. He impressed her a lot, so Zelina easily fell for Rumple, but Rumple knew much better than to fall for her. So it was rather appropriate circumstances that put Rumple together with all of those women. Right here I'm gonna finish this video, so if you want, share with me how you see Rumpelstiltskin's character and tell me whether or not you agree with everything I've spoken of. I wish you happy holidays and see you soon!